So our next speaker is Sean Duffy. He's the founder of EdTech Austin, and he's also an assessment specialist and advisor to Pearson. He does a lot of work in the area of trying to advance education through the use of technology, things like Google Fiber and tablets and all those things. So everyone, Sean Duffy.
Thank you very much. So my presentation is basically a not as good version as Emily's. So thank you, Emily. So imagine that thing that you're most passionate about. Focus on the thing that really motivates you. That can be anything, running, coffee, the Florida State Seminoles, education technology, any random thing. Now imagine that nobody else you know is as passionate about that thing as you are. What are you going to do? Well, I'll tell you. You can do one of three things. Number one, you can just forget about it, give up, move on. Number two, look for a community of folks who are just as passionate as you are. Join them. They need you, I promise. Or number three, you can look and find there is no community, and that's your opportunity to build one yourself. Well, this is my story about doing that last thing. So I thought this talk originally was going to be just about building educational technology communities or communities around education, but I quickly realized how important it is here in Austin to build communities around our other passions as well. So think about that thing that you're passionate about and imagine ways that you can get involved and collaborate within that community. Now, I say community, this can be large or small as your school, your city, your state. It could also be a department or a work group. But ultimately, so it may sound like an understatement, but education communities are extremely important. And I'm obviously a big fan of them. I'm biased in that regard, but they're what schools are all about. After all, it is a collection of communities, teacher communities, student communities. The list is nearly endless. And these communities don't just exist in the physical world. I started EdTech Austin as a way for folks to come together and talk about the newest, greatest tools in education. But I've been amazed by all of the amazing ways that these folks have collaborated online and the startups that are producing some really cool stuff. I've met folks in Austin from companies like HootMe, FastFig, and EduSync, to name a few. And some of the ways that they're finding the tools they're creating for kids to collaborate online are just getting better every day. And so I found, though, that in this community there tends to be this technology bottleneck where entrepreneurs are developing great tools, but districts aren't able to use them as well as they could. And for instance, every district I've worked in, I've had issues with having the physical hardware as well as the bandwidth. But fortunately, this is changing. With tools like Google Fiber coming into play in our schools, we're finding more opportunities for students to collaborate online and in real life. And I expect that quality and variety of tools to increase as Google Fiber comes online. Now, building communities that embrace change is important, and this happens only when folks are willing to take a chance and say yes. And I reluctantly began saying yes to teaching classes that I'd never thought of before. I'm an English teacher, so it's kind of weird to teach STEM and broadcast journalism, but I drew the line at teaching French. But I realized that by saying yes, I got more of an opportunity to focus on my passion. And eventually, I distinguished myself from other teachers who were not willing to try new things and who were always saying no. So the next step in creating that community is to just start doing something, anything. As long as it's related to your passion, just go for it. I created EdTech Austin by saying yes when Capital Factory offered to host us in the space, and it's been a really great experience. The group started with just 2 members, myself and my wife, and it grew much more quickly than I could have imagined. And it was all about that first step. We're now the 3rd largest EdTech meetup in the world, behind San Francisco and New York, but we're gaining on them. The most important thing that I've learned from organizing is that listening to the community is ultimately the most important piece. Providing them the tools that they need to thrive is crucial. And so the best way that I found to get people engaged is to empower them to make a difference. And we do that through the meetup and through really cool programs like Startup Weekend for Education. So now comes the tough part. Once you've found that community, those folks who are equally as passionate as you are, the next challenge is just understanding that community, especially in education. It's basically a moving target in a world full of distractions. There's so much noise on social media, on Facebook, and email inboxes. And after an exhausting day in the classroom, it's really, really hard to reach teachers. And I wish I had a magic bullet here, but basically, it's just trying something, reflecting and iterating, and then after that, just keep saying yes, especially if it's free coffee with good company. Just make time for that passion and keep providing your community the tools that they need to survive. Now, finally, I have a call to action to you all, and that is that Austin needs more of these collaborative and inclusive communities. So I ask you, what are you passionate about? Your community is out there, it's waiting for you, and you just get involved. We have so many awesome tools here in Austin. We're armed to the teeth with great developers, entrepreneurs, now Google Fiber, and so I call to you to go beyond just lending a helping hand. Create your own opportunities for collaboration. There's no shortage of challenges in education. You could be the next big thing in ed tech, I promise. Yeah, so start by saying yes more than you say no. Thank you very much.